Did the 1960s literally die on December 6, 1969? It's a pretty wild thought, isn't it? I mean, we're so used to thinking of the 1960s as this golden decade, defined by peace, love, and a deeply hopeful counterculture. But today, we're going to explore how a single, disastrously planned music festival in Northern California completely shattered the utopian illusions of an entire generation.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the Altamont Speedway Free Festival. This was an event that was supposed to be the West Coast's answer to Woodstock, a triumphant, loving end to the decade. But as you'll see, it instead became the definitive catalyst that ushered in a gritty, cynical, and far darker era of rock and roll.
All right, let's lay out our roadmap for today. We're going to start with the dream of Woodstock West, see how it quickly became a recipe for chaos, look at the tragic violence at the stage, the ultimate death of an era, and finally, how a darker decade begins.
Section 1. The Dream of Woodstock West, San Francisco's Vision.
So to really grasp how things went so completely off the rails, we first got to rewind to the status quo of late 1969. Just 4 months prior to this, the Woodstock Festival out in New York had seemingly proven that, hey, hundreds of thousands of young people really could gather together in total harmony. Musicians out in California naturally wanted to replicate that. You had guys like Jefferson Airplane's Spencer Dryden and the Grateful Dead who wanted to show the Rolling Stones the magic of the San Francisco counterculture. Their grand ambition? To cap off the Stones' 1969 U.S. tour with a massive, completely free outdoor show.
The Rolling Stones were actually totally on board for this, partly because they wanted to shut down journalists who were criticizing their tour ticket prices for being way too high. They fully expected a peaceful gathering. But man, the reality on the ground felt completely different right from the start. Jefferson Airplane's Grace Slick actually recalled later that the vibes were bad. She said it was this hazy, abrasive, unsure day, noting, "I'd expected the loving vibes of Woodstock, but that wasn't coming at me."
Section 2. A Recipe for Chaos, Logistical Nightmares.
Okay, so how exactly does a festival built on such idealistic intentions turn into an absolute disaster? Well, it basically all comes down to logistics. Let's walk through this timeline because it's just a masterclass in what not to do. Weeks prior, initial plans to use San Jose State and Golden Gate Park fell through. Okay, fine. Then, a backup plan at Sears Point collapses on December 4th over a massive $300,000 cash deposit and film rights. So, in a wildly desperate move, organizers accepted an offer to use the Altamont Speedway. Notice those dates. The venue was secured on Thursday night, the concert was Saturday. Think about that. You've got 300,000 people descending on a racetrack with basically zero infrastructure, no medical tents, practically no portable toilets, a total logistical nightmare.
But honestly, the most mind-boggling failure of the whole shebang was the security. $500. That is the exact value of the beer that was used to secure the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club as security. Yep, you heard that right. Organizers essentially made a casual handshake deal to keep people off the stage in exchange for a truck full of ice and beer.
And this perfectly captures the massive disconnect between the organizers and the harsh reality of the situation. Look at this quote from Hells Angels Oakland chapter head Sonny Barger. He flatly stated, "I didn't go there to police nothing, man." He thought he was just getting free beer to sit on the edge of the stage. Now, on the flip side, the Stones' road manager, Sam Cutler, claimed the Angels were only ever meant to guard the generators. So put that together, you have hundreds of thousands of people, zero facilities, and a heavily intoxicated biker gang operating under incredibly vague instructions. It doomed the event before a single chord was even played.
Section 3. Violence at the Stage, a Dangerous Powder Keg.
Now, what's absolutely crucial to understand about this situation is the physical setup of the venue. The Rolling Stones stage manager, Chip Monk, was facing an absolute nightmare. At the original planned venue, the stage would have been up on a hill. But at Altamont, the stage was set at the very bottom of a slope, and it was only 39 inches high. That's barely a meter. Just imagine 300,000 people naturally being pushed by gravity down a hill toward a stage that you could practically just step right onto.
This incredible physical pressure created a literal powder keg.
Now, Santana's opening set actually went pretty smoothly, but things deteriorated so fast after that. It started when someone in the crowd accidentally knocked over a Hells Angels motorcycle. In response, the Angels immediately armed themselves with sawed-off pool cues and motorcycle chains to violently beat the crowd back. And I mean violently. The 6 months pregnant lead singer of the band The Ace of Cups actually suffered a skull fracture from a thrown bottle. During Jefferson Airplane's set, their singer Marty Balin jumped into the crowd to try and break up a beating and was knocked completely out cold by an Angel. The vibes were so terrifying that the Grateful Dead, the guys who originally helped put this whole thing together, refused to even play. They just packed up and fled.
Section 4. The Death of an Era, a Fatal Conclusion.
By the time the sun finally goes down and the Rolling Stones take the stage, the tension is just suffocating. You have this tightly packed, violent group of about 5,000 people jammed directly against the edge of that tiny 39-inch stage. Mick Jagger actually got punched in the head by a concertgoer within seconds of stepping out of his helicopter. Up on stage, he was just utterly helpless. During the song Sympathy for the Devil, the band literally had to stop playing because the brawling in front of them was so intense. With Jagger pleading into the microphone, "We've really got someone hurt here. Is there a doctor?"
The violence tragically culminated during the song Under My Thumb. An 18-year-old attendee named Meredith Hunter, who an autopsy later confirmed was high on methamphetamine at the time, got into a physical scuffle with the Hells Angels while trying to climb onto the stage. Hunter was chased back into the crowd, where he drew a .22 caliber revolver. Seeing the gun, Hells Angel Alan Passaro charged Hunter with a knife, stabbing him 16 times. Hunter tragically died. Passaro was later tried for murder, but he was actually acquitted on grounds of self-defense after the jury viewed the documentary footage shot by the Males brothers. They had captured that horrific 2-second tragedy right on film.
The cultural whiplash from this event was just staggering. Look at this stark comparison. Woodstock had represented peace, love, and what critic Richard Brody called a Rousseauian dream. You know, this naive idea that young people, if stripped of societal rules, would spontaneously create a loving, gentle grassroots order. Altamont entirely killed that dream. Rolling Stone magazine outright called the event the product of diabolical egotism and a fundamental lack of concern for humanity. In basically a single afternoon, the illusion of the peaceful counterculture evaporated.
Which brings us to our final section. A darker decade begins, chaos turned into art.
So how did the culture, and specifically the artist right at the center of this storm, respond to this new, violent reality? Well, a critic writing about the Rolling Stones during this period noted something really profound. They wrote that the band used their music, quote, like a seismograph to record the intensity of feelings, the violence that is so prevalent now. I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. The Stones absorbed the chaos, the fear, and the darkness of Altamont, and instead of preaching peace, they reflected that harsh, gritty reality directly back into their art.
They completely shed that polite 1960s pop group image and went on what is arguably one of the greatest, grittiest runs in rock history. Look at this timeline. Right as Altamont happens, they drop Let It Bleed, this incredibly bleak, durable rock record. By 1971, they formed their own label and released Sticky Fingers, which is just raw, gritty vulnerability, famously packaged with that controversial Andy Warhol zipper cover. In 1972, fleeing UK taxes, they record the sprawling, messy masterpiece Exile on Main Street in a humid French villa. And then, they returned to America for a '72 tour that was absolutely filled with tear gas, arrests, police clashes, and stops at the Playboy Mansion. They entirely traded the innocence of the '60s for the hedonism and burnout of the '70s, cementing their myth as the world's most dangerous band.
So, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on. Did Altamont destroy the 1960s, or did it simply expose the darkness that was already lurking right there beneath the surface of the counterculture? It's a pretty stark reminder of the dangerous clash between naive idealism and human unpredictability. The music survived, for sure, but it was changed forever. It wasn't clean, it wasn't safe, but it was real. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and remember to keep questioning what lies beneath the surface of the stories we think we know.